Here we are again, the Dit and Dub brothers. I'm Quin, K8QS.
I'm Tom, and I'm still WA9TDD.
Yeah, hey, we're so glad you're here for Ham Radio Perspectives. We're going to talk about 6 common ham radio problems that we encounter all the time. And some people don't know these are problems, so we thought we'd go over them. We're not trying to be critical or put down other hams, but these are just common problems around that we can all learn from. Okay? First one is, number 1 is not listening enough, especially before transmitting. There are a lot of hams, when you get up on the HF band, you're not necessarily going to hear everybody who's on because there may be a skip or two away, or maybe they're close to you, but you can't hear them. So you always want to listen for a while before you grab a frequency, or listen for a while before you respond to someone who is finishing a QSO with someone else. Take a listen real quickly to see if somebody else is calling too, and then try not to call right over them, but add your call toward the end of theirs, and maybe the station will work both of you then. And the other thing that's important about listening is getting the rhythm, not just to know what stations are out there and all, but getting the rhythm going back and forth. This is especially true for contesting and working DX.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to know when to call and when not to call. And sometimes if you can't hear the DX station, or you're in a contest that's really crowded, you might end up calling while the other station is talking. And I hear this on pileups all the time. And then somebody will come on the frequency and say, hey, he's listening now, you nitwit or whatever. And so it goes round and round and round. Listen, listen, listen. Number 2, Tom.
Number 2 is neglecting your antenna system. A common trap is spending a massive portion of the budget on a top-tier transceiver while completely compromising on an antenna. There's the magic HT myth, expecting a 5-watt handheld transceiver with a factory rubber ducky antenna to hit reliably distant repeaters, or, perform miracles from the car or your basement. Along with that is overlooking the coax and connectors, using the cheap, lossy coax cable or poorly installed connectors, which can bleed away, your RF power before it even reaches the antenna. A $1,500 radio hooked up to a poorly tuned dipole with subpar coax will always be outperformed by a $300 radio attached to a highly efficient, well-placed antenna.
There you have it. Okay, let's go to number 3. Here we're talking about microphone technique, or as one of my friends used to say growing up, maybe you said this too, he used to call it the microphony. You got to use your microphony correctly.
Right.
Your microphone.
Your microphony.
Yeah, microphony. Phony mic. So you want to be close enough that people can really hear you and you're modulating adequately, but you don't want to be so close that you're moving it into distortion, or you're causing a little, that you can on there. That doesn't sound good. And so you get that distance just right and use the settings on your rig correctly. And then once you understand that distance, stay that distance away from the mic. There's a guy I hear on 40 meters all the time who's got a mic on a microphone stand, I think attached to his desk or something, and he pulls it over and he starts talking, and then he moves it around and he forgets to put it back, and it sounds like he's operating in the basement, halfway across the basement or something. Okay, so distance and volume are important. And then there is I'll call it in my academic talk here, articulation. No mumbling. Articulate well. Hit those consonants, hit those vowels, get them all in there. Don't mumble to the point where somebody is thinking, what is that guy saying? I can't understand him. So speak clearly, enunciate clearly. Even if you have to speak a little bit more slowly, it's worth it.
All right. Number 4 problem, errors, is programming and operational errors. The modern radios, and they're getting more modern all the time, are essentially specialized computers, and the complexity of their menus can lead to basic functional errors. For example, if you're working a repeater, incorrectly setting the frequency, the offset, the tone, the CTCSS or the DCS. If these elements aren't, perfectly aligned, you'll be unable to key up the local repeaters. Huge problem with the cheaper HTs. Quin had an issue with an HA2, and that turned out to be just a programming computer compatibility issue.
Yeah, but I didn't know it because the rig looked perfect. This was the HA2 that we reviewed. You reviewed it especially, and then you sent it to me to use. And I wanted to put the local frequencies in. So I attached it to my Mac computer, downloaded Chirp, to put the frequencies in because I didn't want to use the ones made by the company. Not that I'm against those, but Chirp is nice. You can use it with multiple radios. It's easy to use. So I put the frequencies in Chirp, uploaded it to the HA2. I couldn't work anybody. I couldn't get a single repeater in the area to respond, Tom. It was driving me nuts. Yeah. I think I even called you on the phone or sent you an email about it. And I called the guy that lives a couple blocks from me to get on his to see if I could get that far. Was it a distance issue? And he couldn't hear me at all. I couldn't hear him. It was terrible. Well, it turned out that using Chirp on a Mac and uploading it to that HT is no good. So the last thing I tried was to take my Windows computer, use Chirp on that and upload it to it, and it worked perfect. But my point is that when I looked at the HT, what it showed in there for the frequencies and all, it looked perfect. So settings, very important.
Right. And, the more modern receivers or all of the modern transceivers, you have an over-reliance on the features. You get lost in the digital signal processing, the noise blankers, complex compression settings before mastering the foundational basic controls of the rig. And on my IC 7300, which has a very nice menu system, I find out that I don't use most of the features anyway. So if you're starting to get used to a newer transceiver, I would say just go back to the basics, and then you can fiddle around with the other settings as needed. So don't get lost in all the menus and all of the computerized gadgets on your transceiver.
Yeah. Wow. Some of these new rigs, Tom, I don't know that I don't even want to tackle all of the different features. So at any rate, number 5 is poor on-air etiquette. Poor on-air etiquette. Now, this can get a little bit delicate, and some people may disagree with what we have to say here, but we put together what we think are the critical issues here in on-air etiquette, and we'll just run through those real quickly. First is a lot of unnecessary chatter. Unnecessary chatter. The one that drives me crazy all the time, Tom, I'm giving away what irritates me, but is people who repeat the same thing. You're 5'9". Yeah, you're 5'9" here. I got to tell you, you got a 5'9" signal, buddy. 5'9" here. They'll repeat everything. They give their names 27 times and so on. Or somebody will, as they turn it over, they'll say, okay, are you copying me back there? I'm going to turn it back over to you. Are you ready to receive it? Here we go, buddy. Please, let's go. It's your turn again. At the end, it's, rather than just saying over or something simple like that. So we can get very wordy is the point here with a lot of chatter, and it's not good. Another one is, forgive me, gang, non-standard phonetics. So when I say kilo 8 Queen sugar, some of the guys, even in response to our videos, when I say that at the beginning, when I give my call, will say that's non-standard. And that is true. The question is, do we always need to use the standard ones? Let's say kilo 8 Quebec Sierra. Do we always need to do that? And I don't think so. When you're on with friends and you know each other's calls, you know the phonetics that you use, maybe you've got some interesting phonetics. There was a guy that used to check into our 10-meter net in Chicago, W9SGB, and he would say, sweet Georgia Brown, W9,
Brown.
Sweet Georgia Brown. And that's great. Nothing wrong with that in the right context. But you have to be careful, because when you start working people that don't know you, they're not familiar with your call, you're better off staying with standard phonetics. Another problem is failing to identify. I don't want to sound like I'm a fundamentalist about this, but boy, oh boy, on 80 meters, especially in the evening, I will hear guys in conversations go 45 minutes without any of them ever identifying. Not that I absolutely have to know who they are, but I would like to know what their call is so I can look them up and see what the skip is like. And maybe there's something I can do to tune them in better. That kind of thing. And that's really important. So identify. And finally, not saying something like over or back to you when it's time to turn it over to the other station. This has become more and more common in my experience, Tom, with new operators, especially when they get on HF. On repeaters, you can kind of hear when someone stops, But on HF, I'll work someone and they'll say, okay, you're 5-9 here in Lewistown, New York, and then silence. And I'm listening. Were they going to say more or not say more? What are we doing here? All they has to do is say over or back to you. Or in Spanish, you could say, la palabra es tuya. How about that? The word is yours is the way they say that. La palabra es tuya. So that's it. Poor on-air etiquette.
Okay, and number 6. And this is a problem This is a problem with newbies, and it's the mic, key, or keyboard fright. The most detrimental mistake in getting a license, buying the equipment, and then leaving it in a closet because you fear doing it wrong. It's too paralyzing. The amateur radio community is generally incredibly welcoming. The only way to overcome the initial intimidation is to press the push to talk button, get on the air,
listen first.
Enjoy making a fool of yourself a few times. Everyone has to. I remember as a novice, I had my Elmer, my mentor, write out a CW script that I followed for probably the first month. And it was successful because it took away that fear. Once you got a contact going and you had a conversation going, you eased into it, and it almost became natural. So, don't be afraid of the key, the mic, or if you're running digital, of your computer.
Yeah, just do it. I was more afraid, Tom, of CW with the key than I was starting out with phone, doing AM phone early on. That key, I would shake trying to operate that straight key. It's something we all have. In my field of communication, we talk about stage fright or fear of speaking, and it's there. Just do it. Hams, for the most part, the vast majority of hams, as you say, Tom, will just work with you on it. So these are 6 common problems that we get into in the ham community. We hope it's been helpful for you. Please subscribe to the channel, put some comments down below, maybe some other things that would help other people who tune in beyond the 6 that we thought were worth talking about. This is Ham Radio Perspectives. I'm Quin, K8QS.
And Tom, W89TDD.
73, everybody.